The supermarket was nearly empty at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just the stragglers, people who worked late, families squeezing in errands between jobs, the lonely buying dinner for one. Esme Winters pushed her cart down the produce aisle with her 3-year-old daughter Calla dozing in the seat. Another 14-hour day, another evening where she was too late for a proper dinner, too tired to care. CEO of Winters Wellness Corporation, a $6 billion empire built on helping people achieve balance and health, and she couldn't even manage to feed her daughter before 8 p.m. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was reaching for apples when she heard it, a child's voice, small, worried. "Daddy, if we don't get food, will we still have my medicine? My chest hurts when I run." Esme's hand froze. She looked up. 3 aisles over, a man knelt in front of a little girl, maybe 5 years old, dark hair and pigtails, red jacket. The man wore a yellow hoodie that had been washed so many times the color had faded to almost nothing. In his cart, a baby, maybe 18 months old, babbling happily. And beside the cart, a boy around 8, holding a box of oatmeal like it was precious cargo. The man, the father, put his hands on the little girl's shoulders. His voice was steady, but Esme could hear the strain underneath. "Yes, baby, we'll always have your medicine. Always. Food we can figure out. Your breathing, that's not negotiable." The little girl nodded seriously, then said something that made Esme's chest constrict. "Okay, Daddy, I can share my food with Micah and Rowan. I'm not that hungry." The father's eyes closed briefly. "You don't have to do that, sweetheart." "But you do it for us," the girl said with the simple logic of children. "So I can do it too." Esme watched as the man stood, squeezed his daughter's hand, and pushed his cart toward the pharmacy section. She found herself following, not intentionally, just compelled. There was something about the way he moved, tired but determined, poor but dignified. At the pharmacy counter, the man picked up an inhaler, looked at the price, $47 without insurance. Esme's jaw tightened, but he put it in the cart without hesitation. Then he moved to the grocery aisles, calculating, counting, putting items in, taking items out. Rice, beans, bread, peanut butter, milk, eggs, bananas. The baby food pouches went in, came out, went back in. The pasta went in, came out, stayed out. Esme realized he was doing math, trying to make it work, and she knew with a certainty that made her stomach drop that he wouldn't be able to. 20 minutes later, she watched it happen. The breakdown, the humiliation, the quiet devastation of a man who'd done everything right and still couldn't afford to feed his children. And Esme Winters, CEO, billionaire, woman who controlled an empire, couldn't walk away. Subscribe to Becca's Stories. Our mission is to inspire your life and brighten your day through powerful narratives of transformation and human resilience. Have you ever helped a stranger in need? Share your story below. Garrett Finch had been doing math in his head since 6 p.m. The daycare had called at 4:30, closed early due to a burst pipe. Could he pick up the kids immediately? Of course he could. He always could, because he was Dad. And Dad was everything. Mother, father, provider, protector, nurse, teacher, cook, comfort. 4 years of being everything. 4 years since Caroline died in the car accident that took his wife and nearly took his sanity. 4 years of learning to be enough for 3 children who deserved 2 parents. Most days, he managed, barely. He worked warehouse logistics from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., slept 4 hours, spent mornings and evenings with the kids, picked up weekend consulting work when he could, supply chain optimization for small businesses. It paid poorly, but it was something. Tonight had been going fine until Sloane started wheezing, the telltale whistle in her breath that meant her asthma was flaring, which meant they needed her inhaler, which they were out of, which cost $47 at the pharmacy because their insurance had dropped them 3 months ago when Garrett's warehouse cut his hours and he lost his full-time status. So here he was, supermarket at 8 p.m., 3 kids in tow, trying to buy groceries and an inhaler with $48 on his debit card. He'd calculated carefully. Oatmeal instead of cereal, store-brand bread, eggs, peanut butter, rice, beans, milk for the baby, a bunch of bananas because Sloane loved making smiley faces for her little brother with banana slices. $42, he figured, maybe $43, plus the $47 inhaler. Total, $90. Wait, no, that was too much. He had $48. Shit. Okay, no bananas. That saved $3. No baby food pouches. Rowan could eat mashed regular food. That saved $5. No second loaf of bread. That saved $2. $42 groceries plus $47 inhaler equals $89. Still too much. Daddy? Micah's voice, his oldest, 8 years old and already too aware of how tight money was. We don't need the fancy peanut butter. The cheap kind is fine. Garrett's throat tightened. It's okay, bud. We'll make it work. But when they reached the checkout, the numbers didn't lie. The cashier scanned each item with mechanical efficiency. Garrett watched the total climb. $12, $24, $36, $51, $58.47. Then the inhaler, $47. Total, $105.47. That'll be $105.47, the cashier said flatly. Garrett's stomach dropped. He'd miscalculated, somehow. The tax, he'd forgotten the tax. His voice came out wrong, weak. Can you run the card? I thought I had... He swiped his debit card. Declined. The word appeared on the screen like an accusation, like a verdict, like everything Garrett had been trying to avoid for 4 years. Cards declined, the cashier said loudly. You got another form of payment? Behind Garrett, he heard it. The sighs, the muttering, 5 people in line, all annoyed, all waiting, all judging. I need to... Garrett's hands were shaking. I need to return some items. Which ones? The cashier sounded more annoyed than sympathetic. Garrett stared at the groceries, at the inhaler sitting on top of everything else, at his 3 children watching him. Sloane's small voice. Daddy, what's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. He wasn't looking at her. Couldn't look at her. We're just adjusting. He picked up the bananas, set them aside. That hurt. Sloane loved those bananas. Then the pasta, the second loaf of bread, the baby food pouches, each item a small failure, each removal another piece of his dignity placed on the counter for everyone to see. Daddy, Micah whispered, I'm not that hungry. We don't need... Shh. Garrett's voice was sharper than he intended. It's okay. It wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. Behind him, a woman's voice, loud enough to make sure he heard. Some people shouldn't have 3 kids if they can't afford groceries. Garrett's jaw clenched. He didn't turn, didn't respond, just kept removing items mechanically, trying not to feel, trying not to break. Sloane was crying now, quietly. She'd seen the bananas go back. Daddy, why are you putting them back? I wanted to make smiley faces for Rowan. We'll get them next time, baby. His voice was steady, a miracle considering his hands were shaking. But there won't be next time. Sloane's child logic was devastating. There's never next time. Garrett stopped, closed his eyes, breathed. She was right. There was never next time. There was only this time, this moment, this choice between feeding his children and making sure his daughter could breathe. Take off the eggs, too, he told the cashier. Daddy, no, Micah started. It's fine. Garrett's voice was flat now, dead. We'll figure it out. Final total, $48.16. He swiped the card again. Approved. The cashier bagged the remaining items, milk, bread, peanut butter, rice, beans, and the inhaler without looking at him. The people in line behind him pushed forward immediately, eager to forget they'd witnessed anything. Garrett gathered the bags. Sloane was still crying softly. Micah carried one bag with both hands, his small face too serious. Baby Rowan babbled happily, oblivious to the catastrophe that had just unfolded. They walked out into the parking lot, into the cold November evening, and Garrett felt the weight of every failure, every miscalculation, every moment of not being enough pressing down on his shoulders until he thought he might collapse under it. He'd kept the medicine, but at what cost? His children had just watched him be humiliated, had watched him choose, had learned that sometimes Daddy didn't have enough. He was loading bags into his beat-up sedan when he heard footsteps behind him. "Excuse me. Sir, wait." Garrett turned, defensive, expecting security, expecting trouble, expecting one more thing to go wrong. But it wasn't security. It was a woman, maybe early 40s, dark hair, elegant even in casual clothes, expensive coat, and she was holding a bag. The bag with the items he'd returned. "You left some items behind," the woman said. "I bought them for you." Garrett stared at the bag, at the bananas visible at the top, at the pasta and baby food and everything else he'd had to choose not to keep. "I don't," his voice cracked, "I don't understand. Why would you—" "Because I was you," the woman said simply. 34 years ago, I was the little girl crying in the store while my mother returned groceries we couldn't afford. And I swore if I ever had the power to change that for someone else, I would." Garrett felt something break in his chest. "I can't accept this," but even as he said it, his hands were reaching for the bag. I'm not a charity case. I work, I provide, tonight was—" He couldn't finish, couldn't explain, couldn't do anything but stand there holding groceries he couldn't afford while his children watched from the car. "You're not a charity case," the woman said gently. "You're a father doing his best. And sometimes best isn't enough because the system is broken, not because you are." From the car window, a small voice. "Daddy, is that the medicine angel?" Garrett turned. Sloan had rolled down the window, was looking at the woman with wonder. "Medicine angel?" the woman asked. Garrett's voice was rough. "She has asthma. That's why I needed the inhaler. And I tell her that when people help with medicine, they're angels. It's something I say to make her feel safe." The woman walked to the car window, knelt down to Sloan's eye level. "I'm not an angel, sweetheart. I'm just someone who understands, and I'm very glad your daddy could get your medicine." Sloan nodded seriously. "Thank you for helping my daddy. He's very tired, but he never says it." The woman looked back at Garrett, and something in her expression shifted. Recognition, understanding, respect. "What's your name?" she asked. Garrett Finch, and these are my kids, Micah, Sloan, and baby Rowan." "I'm Esme Winters." The name meant nothing to Garrett. Should it have? Esme stood, reached into her purse, pulled out a gift card and a business card. "This is $200 for next time, for when the daycare closes early or the calculation is off or the car breaks down. Consider it an investment." "An investment in what?" Garrett asked. "In you." "What do you do for work, Garrett?" "Warehouse logistics, night shift, and weekend consulting, supply chain optimization. I help small businesses reduce waste, improve distribution efficiency. It's contract work, but I'm good at it." Esme's expression changed, sharpened. "Supply chain optimization? That's what my company desperately needs. We're hemorrhaging money on distribution inefficiencies." "Your company?" "Esme Winters Corporation. I'm the CEO, and I'm going to make you an offer, Garrett. Come to my office Monday, 9 a.m. Bring your portfolio, your ideas. Show me what you can do. If you're as good as you say, I'll hire you. Full-time, benefits, health insurance, a real chance." Garrett stared. "You're offering me a job, just like that? Because you saw me returning groceries?" "No. I'm offering you an opportunity because I saw you choose your daughter's breathing over your pride, because I saw a man doing calculations in his head, trying to make $48 stretch to feed 3 children, because I recognize competence when I see it, even when it's wrapped in a worn yellow hoodie." Garrett's legs felt weak. I don't know what to say. "Say you'll be there Monday." "I'll be there." His voice was firmer now. "I swear, I'll show you. I'll prove I'm worth the chance." "I believe you." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Is there anything else you need to tell me before I hire you? Anything I should know?" Garrett hesitated. Then, yeah, one thing. Every month, I donate $20 to Children's Hospital, where Sloan was diagnosed, where they helped us when we had nothing. Even when I'm returning groceries to afford her inhaler, I still give that $20, because some things matter more than keeping it all for myself. I just thought you should know, in case you think I'm not responsible with money. Esme went very still. You donate while you're struggling? The hospital saved my daughter's life. $20 isn't much, but it's something. And legacy, he looked at his kids in the car, legacy isn't what you keep, it's what you give. Esme's eyes were bright, suspiciously bright. Garrett Finch, you're hired. The interview Monday is a formality, but you're hired. Anyone who understands legacy like that belongs in my company. Monday morning, Garrett stood outside Winters Wellness Corporation headquarters at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. He'd borrowed a suit from a neighbor, slightly too big but clean and pressed. In his worn messenger bag, a portfolio of his consulting work, optimization models he'd built, case studies of businesses he'd helped. He hadn't slept, spent the weekend preparing, reviewing, practicing. This was it. This was the chance. The interview wasn't a formality. Esme meant it kindly, but Garrett knew better. He had to prove himself, had to show he wasn't just a charity case she'd felt sorry for in a parking lot. The headquarters was glass and steel, 40 stories, modern, expensive. Everything Garrett wasn't. He took a breath, walked inside. Security directed him to the 40th floor, executive offices. Esme's assistant, a woman named Claire, greeted him warmly. Mr. Finch, Ms. Wingers is expecting you. Can I get you coffee? No, thank you. His voice came out steadier than he felt. Claire smiled. She'll be impressed. Fair warning, she's tough in interviews. But if she brought you here, she already sees something. Just be yourself. Easier said than done. Esme's office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture, awards on shelves, photos of her daughter Calla. Esme stood when he entered, extended her hand. Garrett, thank you for coming. Please sit. They sat across from each other at a conference table. Garrett pulled out his portfolio. For the next 2 hours they talked about logistics, about supply chains, about waste reduction and distribution models, and everything Garrett had been teaching himself through YouTube videos and library books and pure determination. Esme asked hard questions. Garrett answered them. Not just answered, impressed. He could see it in her face, the way she leaned forward, the way she took notes, the way she said, "Tell me more about that," instead of, "We'll let you know." Finally, Garrett, I'm going to be direct. You're exactly what this company needs. You're smart, you're innovative, and you understand something most consultants miss. Logistics isn't just about efficiency, it's about people. The warehouse workers, the drivers, the end users. You see the whole picture. Thank you. Garrett's voice was quiet. Does that mean? It means you're hired. Supply chain analyst to start. $75,000 salary, full benefits, health insurance that covers your whole family, including Sloan's medication. And if you're as good as I think you are, you'll be manager within 6 months. Garrett couldn't speak. $75,000. That was more than double what he made now. That was insurance. That was security. That was feeding his kids without calculations. Why? He finally asked. Why are you doing this? Esme was quiet for a moment. Then, because 34 years ago, my mother stood in a grocery store and returned food so she could buy my insulin. I was diabetic, type 1, diagnosed at 7, and I watched her be humiliated over and over because she chose my health over everything else. We were poor. We stayed poor. And I swore I'd never be powerless like that again. So I built this company, made billions. But you know what I never did? I never helped someone the way I wish someone had helped my mother. Until Friday night. Until I saw you choosing your daughter's breathing over your pride. So this isn't charity, Garrett. This is righting something that was wrong in my own life. This is paying forward what no one ever paid for us. Garrett felt tears on his face, didn't try to hide them. Thank you. I'll make you proud. I promise. I know you will.
Welcome to Winter's Wellness, Garrett. Start date is next Monday. Let's change some lives.
3 months later, Garrett Finch wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. His first project, redesigning the company's distribution network. He'd identified inefficiencies no one else had seen: redundant routes, wasted fuel, inventory sitting in warehouses when it should have been moving. His solution saved the company $2.1 million in the first quarter. Esme promoted him to supply chain manager, raised his salary to $95,000, gave him a team. But more than the money, more than the title, Garrett had something he hadn't had in 4 years: stability. Sloane's asthma was under control. Her medication was fully covered. Her attacks were less frequent. She was thriving in a better school district now that they'd moved to a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms instead of 1, a real kitchen, a park nearby. Micah had joined the robotics club. Baby Rowan was in a quality daycare. Garrett worked regular hours, 9 to 5, came home for dinner, tucked his kids in at night. He felt human again. And Esme had become something unexpected. Not just his boss, but his friend. They had Sunday dinners together. Her daughter Calla and his kids played like cousins. They talked about life, about loss, about the weight of being sole parent to children who deserved the world. There was something else, too, something neither of them acknowledged. The way Garrett brought Esme coffee in the morning without asking, remembering she liked it black with 1 sugar. The way Esme laughed at his jokes in a way she didn't laugh at anyone else's. The way they looked at each other sometimes, and the air felt charged with possibility. But they didn't act on it, kept it professional, respectful, because Garrett worked for her, and crossing that line felt complicated. Until one Thursday in December, when everything exploded. Garrett was preparing for the biggest presentation of his career, a proposal to redesign distribution for their largest client, a national pharmacy chain, $8 million contract. If he landed it, it would revolutionize the company's reputation. He'd spent 6 weeks on the proposal, every detail perfect, every number verified, every assumption tested. Thursday morning, he opened the presentation file to review one more time before the 2 p.m. meeting, and found chaos. Numbers were wrong, charts didn't match data, client specifications were misaligned, everything he'd built, corrupted. What the hell? Garrett stared at his screen. This wasn't his work. This was... Someone had changed it, sabotaged it. He checked the file history. Last modification, 2:17 a.m., by an account labeled T. Merson. Todd Merson, former VP of Operations, fired 6 months ago for incompetence, before Garrett was hired. Garrett's stomach dropped. Todd still had system access, and he'd used it to destroy Garrett's presentation the day before the biggest client pitch of the year? He tried calling IT, no answer. He tried calling Esme. She was in meetings all morning. The presentation was in 4 hours. Garrett had 2 choices: panic or rebuild. He chose rebuild. For the next 3 hours, Garrett worked faster than he'd ever worked, pulled backup files, reconstructed data, recreated charts, verified every number, rebuilt the entire presentation from memory and old drafts. By 1:45 p.m., he had something. Not perfect, but functional, true to his original vision. At 1:50 p.m., he walked into the conference room. The client was there. The board was there. Esme was there. And on the video screen, Todd Merson, calling in remotely, wearing a smile that made Garrett's blood boil. "Garrett," Esme said, "we're ready when you are." Garrett opened his laptop, pulled up the reconstructed file, began presenting. And he was brilliant. He knew his material cold, knew every number, every assumption, every benefit. The client leaned forward, asked questions, liked the answers. Halfway through, one of the board members interrupted. "Garrett, this is excellent work, but I'm confused. This morning, we received an email from IT flagging errors in your presentation, concerns about data integrity. What happened?" Garrett took a breath. "Someone accessed my files at 2:17 this morning and altered them. corrupted the data, misaligned the specs. I discovered it at 9 a.m. and spent the last 4 hours reconstructing from backup files. What you're seeing now is my original work, rebuilt. Someone sabotaged you? Esme's voice was sharp. Who? Todd Merson. He looked at the video screen, at Todd's face going pale. He still had system access, used it to try to make me fail. Todd stammered. That's a serious accusation. It's a fact, Garrett said calmly. I have the digital fingerprints, the access logs, everything, and I reported it to IT an hour ago. They're investigating now. Esme's expression was ice. Todd, is this true? I was trying to help, Todd said desperately. Garrett's been promoted so fast. I thought someone should check his work, make sure he's qualified. So you sabotaged him. Esme's voice could cut glass. You illegally accessed company systems to destroy an employee's work before the biggest client presentation of the year? That's your defense? He came out of nowhere. Warehouse worker to manager in 3 months? That's suspicious. I thought you hired him out of pity, not competence. I was protecting the company. You were protecting your ego, because Garrett succeeded where you failed, because in 3 months he did what you couldn't do in 3 years, and instead of accepting that, you tried to destroy him. She stood. This call is over. Todd, you're being reported to the authorities for unauthorized system access, and if I ever hear your name in connection with this company again, I'll sue you into bankruptcy. We're done. She ended the video call, turned to Garrett. I'm sorry. I should have revoked his access months ago. This is my failure, not yours. It's not your failure, Garrett said quietly. It's his. But it doesn't matter. What matters is this. He gestured to the presentation. This work is sound. This proposal will work, and I can prove it. He turned back to the client. You asked what happened. The truth is, someone tried to sabotage this because they couldn't beat it legitimately. But the work stands. My numbers are correct. My strategy is sound. And if you give us this contract, I'll deliver everything I've promised and more. The client looked at the board, at Esme, back at Garrett. That's the kind of integrity we want to work with. You're hired, Mr. Finch. Let's do this.
The room erupted. Handshakes, congratulations. But Garrett was looking at Esme, and Esme was looking back, and something passed between them that was bigger than business. After the meeting, Esme pulled Garrett aside, into her office, closed the door. She couldn't finish. Garrett, when I hired you, I saw potential, competence, character. But what you did today, that was extraordinary. You could have panicked, blamed me for not revoking Todd's access, made excuses, but you didn't. You rebuilt, you delivered, and you did it with grace. I learned from the best, Garrett said quietly. You gave me a chance when I was returning groceries, saw past my circumstances to who I could be. Today was just returning the favor, proving you were right to believe in me. Esme stepped closer. I want to promote you. VP of Supply Chain Operations, effective immediately. $180,000 salary, full executive benefits. You've earned it. VP? Garrett's voice cracked. Esme, I've been here 3 months, and you've revolutionized our operations, saved us millions, landed our biggest client, and proved that character matters more than pedigree. So yes, VP, say yes. Yes, Garrett whispered. God, yes, thank you. They stood there, close, too close, and Garrett realized this wasn't just gratitude. This was something else, something that had been building for months. Esme, he said softly, Don't, she interrupted gently. Not yet. Not while I work for you. Not while it's complicated. But, she smiled, but ask me again when the timing is right, okay? Okay, Garrett agreed. And they stood there, not touching, not crossing the line, but both knowing, someday, when the timing was right, when they were ready. Someday.
1 year after the supermarket. Garrett Finch stood in front of a crowd of 200 people, media, donors, hospital staff, board members, and his 3 children sitting in the front row with Esme and Calla. The banner behind him read, Finch Winters Pediatric Asthma Center. The hospital wing was opening today, state-of-the-art, fully funded, built through a partnership between Garrett's monthly donations, now $500 instead of $20, and Esme's matching contributions. Garrett stepped to the microphone. 1 year ago, he began, I stood in a supermarket checkout line and returned groceries so I could afford my daughter's asthma medication. I had $48 to my name, 3 kids who deserved better, and no idea how I was going to make it to the next day, let alone the next year. He looked at Sloane in the front row. She was 7 now, healthy, thriving. That night, a stranger saw me, saw my humiliation, saw my children, and instead of walking away, she walked toward me. She didn't give me charity. She gave me dignity, an opportunity, a chance to prove that circumstances don't define capability. His eyes found Esme. She was crying, quiet tears of pride. Esme Winters taught me something I'd forgotten, that legacy isn't what you keep, it's what you give. She built a billion-dollar empire, but what she gave me was worth more than money. She gave me hope. He gestured to the building behind him. This center, it's not mine, it's not hers, it's ours, built on the principle that no parent should have to choose between food and medicine, that no child should suffer because their family can't afford health care, that dignity matters as much as dollars. The crowd applauded. When I was donating $20 a month while I could barely afford groceries, people told me I was foolish, that I should take care of my own first. But here's what I learned. Taking care of your own means taking care of everyone, because we're all connected. Your kids, my kids, the children we'll never meet. They all deserve to breathe. They all deserve hope. He looked back at his children. Micah, 9. Sloane, 7. Rowan, 2.5. So this center is for them and for every family that comes after us. May no one ever feel alone in that checkout line again. Esme stood to speak next. Garrett stepped back, and she took the microphone. Garrett Finch is the most honest man I've ever met, Esme said simply. When I hired him, my board questioned my judgment, said I was letting emotions cloud business. But here's what they didn't understand. Business is emotion. Leadership is empathy. Success is measured not in dollars accumulated, but in lives changed. She looked at Garrett. You changed my life, reminded me why I built this company, not to make billions, but to make a difference. So thank you for being brave enough to accept help, for being strong enough to give it back, for showing me what true wealth looks like. The ribbon was cut, the center opened. Families toured the facility, treatment rooms, education centers, support groups. Afterwards, Garrett and Esme stood in the courtyard watching their children play. 4 kids climbing on playground equipment designed for accessibility, for all children, regardless of health or wealth. Garrett, Esme said quietly, do you remember what you said in my office after the presentation when I asked you not to say something yet? I remember. I think the timing might be right now, if you still want to. Garrett smiled, took her hand. Esme Winters, would you have dinner with me? Not as my boss, not as my friend, but as someone I'd very much like to get to know better, someone I think I could fall in love with, if you'd let me. Esme's smile was radiant. Yes, I'd like that very much. Mama, Calla's voice from the playground, Garrett's kids say we're cousins now, are we? Esme laughed. Maybe, baby, maybe someday. Someday soon, Garrett added quietly.
just for Esme to hear. She squeezed his hand. Someday soon.
The wedding happened 18 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends, held in the courtyard of the Finch Winters Pediatric Asthma Center, where it all began, where legacy was built. Micah was 10, proud ring bearer. Sloane was 8, flower girl who made everyone cry with her speech about the day Mama Esme saved Daddy in the store. Baby Rowan, 3, sat with Calla, 4, both behaving surprisingly well for toddlers. Garrett wore a yellow tie, a private joke, a memory of a worn hoodie in a parking lot, and a moment that changed everything. Esme wore gray, elegant, simple, perfect. When they exchanged vows, they didn't talk about love in the traditional sense. They talked about seeing each other, really seeing, past circumstances to character, past poverty to potential, past brokenness to beauty. I saw you in that store, Esme said, and I saw myself, every struggle, every humiliation, every moment of not being enough. And I knew I couldn't walk away, because walking away from you would be walking away from every version of me that needed someone to stay. Garrett's voice was thick with emotion. You gave me more than a job, more than security. You gave me my dignity back. You saw a man returning groceries, and you saw someone worth investing in, worth believing in, worth loving. And I promise I'll spend the rest of my life proving you were right. They kissed. The courtyard erupted in applause. Afterward, at the reception, Sloane found a moment alone with her father. Daddy, she said seriously, do you remember that night in the store when you put back the bananas? I remember, sweetheart. I was so sad. I thought we'd never have enough, that we'd always be putting things back. But you know what I learned? What? That we did have enough, because we had love, and Mama Esme saw that. She saw that you loved us more than anything, and that's why she helped, not because we were poor, but because we were loved. Garrett pulled his daughter close, kissed the top of her head. You're absolutely right. We always had enough. I just needed someone to help me see it. Across the courtyard, Esme was talking to Calla. Mama, are you happy? Very happy, baby. Because you married Garrett? Because I found a family, Esme corrected. Because I stopped being alone. Because I learned that the best investment I ever made wasn't in a company. It was in people, in hope, in second chances. I like our family, Calla said simply. We're good at being together. We are. We're very good at being together. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Garrett and Esme sat on their back porch. Two people who'd met in the worst moment of his life and turned it into the beginning of something extraordinary. Do you ever think about it? Garrett asked. That night, how different everything would be if you'd walked away? I think about it all the time, Esme admitted. And I'm grateful, so grateful that I didn't. Because walking away would have been easy. Staying, helping, that took courage for both of us. You're the one who had the courage, Garrett said. I was just desperate. No, Esme corrected. You had the courage to accept help, to admit you needed it. That's harder than giving it, trust me. They sat in comfortable silence, partners, parents, people who understood that love wasn't just romance, it was seeing someone at their worst and choosing to see their best. It was groceries returned and dignity restored. It was $48 and a parking lot and a woman who refused to look away. I love you, Garrett said, for everything, for seeing me, for believing in me, for building this life with me. I love you too, Esme replied, for showing me what legacy really means, for teaching me that wealth isn't what you have, it's what you give. And what you give, your kindness, your integrity, your love, is more valuable than anything I ever built in business.
Inside the house, 4 children slept, safe, loved, secure. Outside, 2 people who'd been broken by life and rebuilt by each other sat together under the stars. And somewhere, in every checkout line, in every moment of humiliation, in every instant of human connection, the possibility existed for dignity, for hope, for love. All it took was one person refusing to walk away.
If this story touched your soul, you've experienced the power of Becca's stories. Subscribe for powerful daily narratives about the parents who choose medicine over food, the children who offer to share, the CEOs who remember being poor, and the strangers who refuse to walk past when dignity is being dismantled in aisle 7. Comment below, when have you chosen to help instead of walk away? What would you do if you saw someone returning groceries? Our mission is to inspire your life and brighten your day through powerful narratives of transformation and human resilience.